foundation of human nature is often a topic left in ambivalence. One proposal for explaining such is that we are all born as morally just. However, there is a flaw in this perspective when the crime rates are taken into consideration. Regardless of the reasons for committing unrighteous acts, the responsibility is still placed on the perpetrator. Using their character developments in Hoffman's The Sandman, Wilde's Picture of Dorian Gray, and The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe, you'll see a trend found in the exchange between the individual with their surroundings. Seemingly innocent characters begin to have a shift in their behavior to commit evil acts. This suggests that humans are fundamentally immoral and require a catalyst to weaken their suppression of that innate behavior. By taking the perspective suggested by the writers, it will allow me to propose an argument supporting the duality of human nature. In The Sandman by Hoffman, Nathaniel addresses a traumatic childhood event in which he hid behind his father's curtains in his room to conclude who the Sandman really is. His parents had invited a guest named Coppelius, a large, broad-shouldered man with a face of yellow ochre, a prominent Roman nose, and distorted lips. The language that the character uses is sourced from a fearful tone, whereas the age in which he's experiencing these memories is very young. These observations are potentially significant. As suggested by Danielle Geistfeld in 2015 in her analysis, the questionable nature of Nathaniel's version of these events set a precedent that will follow him the rest of his life. The symbolism of children and innocence is used by the author to strategically imply that Nathaniel's decision to defy his mother's wishes of heading to bed represents his inability to control immorality from within him. At this age, it should be easy for a child to follow their parents' wishes, yet he already has difficulty doing so due to his curiosity. Nathaniel demonstrates that even those seeming the most pure and most innocent are capable of demonstrating dishonorable deeds. In this case, the intense fear of the man Coppelius, or the Sandman in this case, begins the strive within Nathaniel to avoid committing acts that continue to break away from the standards of the morale. A research experiment conducted by the JAMA Psychiatry showed how among the sample of 2,827,607 individuals, all of the examined trigger events were associated with increased risk of violent crime in the week following exposure. This is found evident in Nathaniel's character and developed from someone with a loving fiancé and support system to a person later committing infidelity and driven to attack his fiancé as an effect of encountering a memory that resembles his childhood terror. Elizabeth Purcell, 2016, supports this by revealing how this trauma is unearthed in the fateful meeting with the barometer dealer Coppola. For Nathaniel, his catalyst was Coppelius. The relevance of this literary piece illustrates how people struggle to suppress their corruption at even a young age, the foundational period of someone's life in the face of their personal immoral stimulus. Although people are more inclined to suppress the behavior as means for appearing well-behaved for a societal group as small as their parents, no one can escape that innate drive to be fundamentally immoral. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde also takes on a rendition of the idea of the innocent from the previous work. At the opening of the novel, the appeal of Dorian Gray for Basil was his profound ignorance to his unarguable beauty. After a conversation with Lord Henry testifying how Dorian must enjoy the time of peak vitality in his life, his relationship to the beautiful portrait drawn of himself becomes supernaturally characterized, where any vile acts committed on his end would not affect his portrayal in real life, but on canvas instead. As stated by Johnson 2015 in his article, Dorian executes the fast life strategy. This fast life strategy is characterized by drug use, casual sex, and interpersonal aggression, engaging in these behaviors with seemingly little consequence. Therefore, the duality of the portrait in Dorian is potentially significant. The author's use of Freud's mechanism for the uncanny of the double creates an element of eerie foreshadow towards Dorian's future. It illustrates with vivid imagery how corrupt Dorian is capable of appearing. This serves as a visual mirror of such immorality in humans. However, instead of adhering to this warning of being blinded by superficial beauty, Dorian abuses it by letting someone other than him be corrupted for his hideousness, in this case, his portrait. His ignorance becomes his downfall from the very beginning. His inclination to committing vile deeds goes without the concern from empathy, but over the concern of his documented degrading beauty. Dorian's lack of conscience towards anything aside from himself is evident in Sybil's resulting suicide, the list of people he corrupted, and Basil's murder. Hejin Lee states in her article that his portrait, which causes Dorian to recognize his beauty and to go into narcissism, also brings out impermeable anxiety because of his refusal of the aging process. If Dorian were to be fundamentally just, then Lord Henry's proposal or the portrait would not have had any effect on his character. However, once he found an escape route to crime, his authority over preventing this constant inclination to ruin the lives of others was greatly weakened. Since he was aware of his capabilities, the appeal was difficult to resist. Thomas Ireland, 1832, strengthens his perspective in asserting how he suggests that the cause of crime would be more correctly stated if it originated in the uncultivated state of man's intellectual powers. For Dorian, the catalyst for his vileness was the portrait. Once people discover the vehicle to avoiding the consequences of their wickedness, the arousal of crime stimulates the internal desire to accept their immorality. Although society attempts to plaster over immorality with artificial beauty, much like Dorian had, we are unable to disregard the reality of people's fundamentally corrupt natures. The story of the Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe reveals how people's fundamentally corrupt natures are enticed by even a sole encounter with evil. The narrator prefaces by stating that the following is a list of mere household events characterized by an element of the supernatural. Although he was once amicable of animals and kind-hearted, the lead-up of events preceding his alcoholism resulted in brutal mistreatment of his beloved cats and his wife. The indifferent tone the narrator has as he speaks of such horrific events is potentially significant. In terms of the standards of morale, many people would be terrified for having to admit committing sinful crimes such as his. His lack of apologies flooding his story and instead emphasis on supposed supernatural element strengthens the argument that people are more concerned with matters aside from righteous compassion. Trent MacDonald, his essay, reveals how a large constant in Poe's life was his fight with alcohol, while the narrator of the Black Cat succumbs to alcohol and is destroyed. This means that the narrative was inspired by a true memoir that could be applied in some manner to many. The narrator's drinking initiated his first experience with violence within the household. Since he discovered he was capable of doing such deeds, his inclination to worsen the severity of his actions grew. Stark, 2015, asserts in his critical essay how all things can be explained by simple cause and effect. If such a conclusion is true, then all human actions have an irrational determinism at their core. The narrator's impulse for lavish drinking initiated his eventual befall with the facade as the purest man in the perfect relationship. A memoir from an anonymous patient of Dr. Raby, 2011, discusses how alcohol rots your judgment. One more won't hurt. The first one more may not. Later comes the one that does, and you are gone. In this case, the narrator's kind heart is discredited since he is capable of not only committing, but admitting to ruining the lives of those around him. The catalyst for the narrator was the alcohol, but it served as an object that his internal corruption could lust after. Once people are enticed by the idea of corruption and are given more chances to commit it without any consequences, many will abuse the warnings and instead commit the severity of such wrongful deeds. Oftentimes, the regret surfaced after committing such deeds cannot overtake the satisfaction of its allure. A central idea is how there is a distinct moment when these seemingly innocent characters are helpless to the influence of corruption. For each character, the catalyst served a different purpose. For Nathaniel, his immorality was pulled from the fear of Coppelius. For Dorian, it was the allure of the portrait's escape route from preventing him to growing older and looking physically unattractive. For the narrator, the alcohol enticed an opposing side to his amicable facade. Once the characters received the satisfaction of committing wrongful deeds, they were unable to deny their hidden desire to commit some more. Regardless of the differing degrees of stimulus, people are all capable of falling victim to the allure of their fundamental corrupt nature if they choose not to uphold righteousness against it.